Paul didn't like how his world had changed. I mean, no doubt he was way outside of his comfort zone in Athens. He was there almost by accident. He had to run away from Thessalonica and Berea, and he had come to Athens only to wait for his friends. So he found himself in a world he didn't ask for, in a world he didn't approve of. This is where we find the second unexpected shift in the story. Now, the first unexpected shift was that Paul would get so angry about the idols in the city that he would deviate from his usual plan. Paul doesn't have to like idols, but he could have shrugged them off, right? Not my country, not my people, not my problem. But he doesn't do that. It bothers him and he can't let it go. Now, the second shift is that Paul hides his feelings and preaches the gospel. Look, Paul is greatly distressed, but notice how he begins his sermon to the leaders of Athens. People of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. He is complimenting them for being devout believers in their religion. Is Paul a sociopath complimenting them to their face for being devout while deeply offended by their devotion? Paul isn't a sociopath. He's a missionary. Look, I've been in Sabbath school classes where every time the world around them is brought up, somebody would pipe up, oh, the world is just so terrible, so terrible. Jesus will have to come soon. It's the only way anything's going to be fixed. Look, I mean, that's true, okay? And that's the attitude of Paul when he first got to Athens. But let us thank God that Paul didn't wallow in that attitude, because when he got to the Areopagus, he looked at the leaders of Athens and said, as I was looking at the statues of your gods, I saw one altar dedicated to the unknown God. This is the God I'm here to tell you about. In other words, Paul used the idol that he found as his entering wedge to proclaim the truth about God. The people of Athens may be wrong about what they believe, but they were a people to be loved and reached with the gospel. So Paul didn't just stay angry with them. He didn't take his anger out on them and condemn the world around him. He adapted and he preached in a way that they could understand. If you're going to be a missionary, you have to learn their language, right? You have to learn their culture, how they talk, what foods they like, and little quirks like, I don't know, maybe they're uncomfortable with handshakes. So the more stuff you learn, the clearer you're able to explain the gospel in ways they will understand. The theological word for this is incarnation. Like Jesus, you are taking on their form, learning to be one of them. Paul makes this clear when he says to the Greeks, he's a Greek, and to the Jews, he's a Jew. Why? So that he might win them all to Jesus. Paul becomes the people he is trying to reach, stepping into their shoes, understanding how they think. This principle, which he learned from Jesus himself, is what made Paul the greatest missionary who ever lived. We see Paul doing this in Athens. And as I've said, Paul didn't quote the Bible in his sermon. He quoted two Greek philosopher poets, those Greek names, man. All right, we're going to get this. Epimenides, there we go. Epimenides, there we go. And Aratus. Whew, second one is so much easier. Anyways, when Paul does that, he's basically saying, I'm not going to appeal to my inspired scripture. I'm going to start by appealing to the works you guys consider to be inspired to show that the truth about God can be found in bits and fragments everywhere, all around us. Now, is Paul getting his theology from these Greek guys? No, but he is finding his theology in their writings. That's an important distinction. Paul is very careful in what he quotes from these Greek philosophers. He quotes only as much as he can agree with. Paul actually quotes Epimenides twice. He quotes him here and in his letter to Titus. So obviously he spent time reading these guys. He wants to understand the people he is trying to reach with the gospel. If we don't spend that time trying to understand the world around us, it will be very difficult to reach them. So studying the culture is not just about consuming culture. We're not here to ingest every song or movie or book because it is popular. But it does mean that we are making an effort to listen. And it's hard to listen when you have a lot to say. And believe me when I say nobody had more to say than Jesus. But if you read the Gospels, you'll notice that Jesus is usually spending his time listening before he's speaking. People just approach Jesus and ask him questions, and then Jesus answers. Everything Jesus ever said was important, and yet so many of his stories begin with him listening to somebody else first. If we're going to reach this post-Christian world, we are going to have to get out of our comfort zones. We're going to have to see ourselves as missionaries right where we are. And I know we have a terabyte of theological information we just want to dump on people, but we're going to have to learn how to listen. What we're looking for is not so much a new method as the right attitude. And if we accept the world we live in, if we love people and listen to people and want to share the gospel with them, then we're going to be okay as a church. But this is going to require not just a new way of doing things, but a new way of thinking about things.